Brandon, what's up, my friend?
Not much. I can't believe the regular season's winding down.
I know this
Ugh.
always happens. It's crazy. I tell people in coaching, it goes even faster than this.
Really?
Like as a fan, it goes fast. But in coaching, just because everything's so segmented and the routine you get into it's like it speeds up as you get toward the end of the year until about the last. But then if you're playing in a meaningless bowl, that stretch between like when you're going 100 miles per hour and the regular season stops to when you get to the bowl, it's an eternity. It takes forever. The days are so long. You get days off and you're like, wait, it's 11:30. What am I getting? Like, I'm going to just go eat lunch? Like, we can just go eat lunch? Like, we don't have to do anything? So I'm with you, Brandon. It's been a hell of a season. I'm glad we got some new blood in here. I'm going to get to the on-the-field stuff because that's very important. But there's been some reports out there. There's been some whispers. You cover the whole shebang from on the field to off the field. What chances right now, Brandon, would you put Lane Kiffin of being the next head coach at Auburn?
I don't know, but he is the number one guy. I've been reporting that since about 20 minutes after Brian Harsin was fired.
Yep.
People close to John Cohen that I know have put him up at the top of that board. I think that's something that obviously will not have itself resolved here for the next like 2.5, 3 weeks, maybe even longer. But they're looking for a guy that is just going to make a huge splash and someone who can come in and obviously help them in the transfer portal because they need to, goodness gracious, make so many big changes there for Auburn. But, right now, listen, I tend to judge people by what they show us in their public persona, even if that could be fake at times. But Lane Kiffin has this pattern there at Ole Miss this past year of just absolutely kind of almost throwing his own program under the bus, even if he doesn't realize it, talking about, oh man, he's upset with attendance in an 11 a.m. game going into a top 10 matchup. He's complaining about the lack of NIL money and how others are outspending them. He's complaining about losing his defensive coordinator DJ Durkin to an SEC West rival at Texas A&M because they got outbid. And then just this past Saturday, I think without him realizing it, he starts getting upset because someone asked him about their rushing yardage against Alabama to loss. He's like, I don't care about that. I came here to beat Alabama. And I think that if he was looking at himself in the mirror while he was saying and going on that little mini rant there, he'd go, oh, yeah, I'm 0-4 against Nick Saban, 0-3 here at Ole Miss. Something is holding me back. Oh, wait, maybe it's Ole Miss. So I think if you were to look in the mirror and realize you've probably hit the ceiling there at Ole Miss, being a 10-win program, 11-win program, which is nice. But if you want to win a national championship, you got to go somewhere with better resources, and easier access to the type of talent you need on a consistent basis there, especially through the high school level. And you get that at a place like Auburn. And historically, they've shown that. Ole Miss, obviously not so much.
Yeah, and Lane seems like the person in the breakup. You know how some people are like, listen, it's not you, it's me. Lane seems like the person that's like, yeah, it's definitely you.
It's not
me. It's got nothing to do with me. It's definitely you. Brandon, moving on to kind of what we talked about earlier, looking at the way it's shaking out now that the Pac-12 is, like I said, pulling a Jeffrey Dahmer and cannibalizing itself. It seems to me that we are going to have two teams from one conference in. The question is, which conference is that? Is it the Big Ten or the SEC? How do you kind of see it shaking out? Because the one fly in the ointment does seem to be North Carolina to me. If they're able to run the table and then beat Clemson in the ACC championship, I think it'd be hard to keep them out with the moves that they've made and their loss early in the year. You have a Heisman candidate in Drake May who's having an unbelievable season. But if you had to pick Big Ten or SEC right now, which really is, LSU's out there possibly. Tennessee, we know, is probably the best chance outside of Georgia because I don't see LSU beating Georgia in the SEC championship. Which conference do you think is going to get two in?
I'd go with the SEC right now because of Tennessee obviously not having to play in the SEC championship game. Mm-hmm. And they've got a pretty easy road here at their last two games against South Carolina and Vanderbilt. And their only losses against the unquestioned number one team really in the land right now in Georgia. Whereas with Michigan and Ohio State, what hurts the loser of that game in the game is that it happens later in the season, obviously the last regular season game. And I think that recency bias would hurt them a little bit. Tennessee is in a really great position. They just got to kind of hope for, that they can keep things together. And I was being asked, do they need style points. I don't think Tennessee necessarily needs style points. They just need to wait for how things shake out
Yeah.
ahead of them, which there's going to be a loser in the game, and that's going to open the door up for Tennessee to get in as a 4 seed. So, yeah, I think the SEC is in a very good spot as long as they don't have some craziness happen even in the SEC championship.
Yeah, could get that Tennessee-Georgia rematch first round of the playoff.
You could get that, or you're talking about craziness happening in the SEC championship game. That could cause 2 teams to get in as well, because let's just say LSU does go to Atlanta and wins. Brandon, are they really going to keep a 2-loss LSU conference champion out of the playoff?
Bama and Georgia?
And then I think Georgia's already going to be in, no matter if they lost in the conference championship. So even if we get some fireworks in Atlanta, Brandon, how do you think that would shake out?
Yeah, that's the interesting question, but I think the committee would sit back and take an LSU over the Pac-12 champion if it's USC as a one-loss champion. I think at that point they would still take LSU. I think that's going to be the question that would really, quote-unquote, maybe hold LSU back from being able to get in all these scenarios. But I think the committee's made it pretty clear by the way they've ranked LSU over the last couple of weeks that, hey, if they keep winning and win this SEC championship, they've got a door opening here to be that first 2-loss team to make it. And the committee is supposed to value conference champions. I mean, it's on their list of criteria. Like, they got 5 pieces, and that's one of them. That's a big one. So I think very well LSU will get in as the SEC champion.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, it just kind of occurred to me, Brandon was bringing up Lane beating Alabama and stuff like that. I wonder if he sees Brian Kelly go to LSU, not only beat Nick Saban in his first year, but win the SEC West. We all know LSU's a national brand and has everything you need. I hadn't put those two together. I think that was just a great comment by
No, it could be. And you brought up an interesting scenario there, because all eyes on Southern California this weekend. Number 8 USC at number 12 UCLA. USC is still going to have to play their rival there, play Notre Dame, who's been spoiling everyone's party around the country, and then possibly play an Oregon team in the conference championship. Now, I've been saying, if Southern California, with as big of a brand as they are, new head coach Lincoln Riley, if they go unbeaten the remainder of the season, and their only loss is by 1 point on a 2-point conversion at Utah, which is a good football team, they're going to make the college football playoff. Now, you brought up an interesting scenario there, because if a 2-loss LSU team beats Georgia in the conference championship, and you have either Michigan or the Buckeyes go unbeaten, and TCU stays unbeaten, that's really where you're going to have a hang-up. What do you think about this game in Southern California this weekend, and do you like the chances of USC going unbeaten? A lot of dynamics at play with both of these programs leaving the Pac-12 for the Big Ten here shortly.
Yeah, USC is so interesting to me. I've been watching them so closely this season, and early in the year they were carried by their defense, not necessarily as a defense that just keeps opponents in check as far as points, but they were forcing turnovers like crazy. At Oregon State, they should have lost that game, but they won it because they forced Chance Nolan, the quarterback, into 4 interceptions. And of course, USC was able to score in the final 2 minutes to win it on the road. I keep waiting for USC to kind of stub its toe, and they've had some slow starts here lately. The Colorado game, you look at the final score, go, wow, they beat the crud out of them, but very slow start against Colorado. Caleb Williams was struggling a little bit. He's at his best when he's kind of running around trying to create like a Patrick Mahomes back there, and he loves that stuff, but that's kind of been detrimental for them at times, especially early in games, even when the pressure's not there for him. But it's interesting. The Pac-12 leads all conferences in college football with 6 ranked teams in the AP poll, and they're eating each other up, as you said, Jake. I mean, I don't think there is an elite team there. I think there's like 2 great teams, maybe 3, and it's hurting them. You look across college football this week, there are only 2 top 25 matchups in all college football, and they're both in the Pac-12. And we're even sitting here thinking, well, it's not that big of a week in college football. You got College Game Day going to an FCS game or something like that. I don't even know where they're going. And that kind of just tells you the respect or lack of that we have for the Pac-12. I mean, USC and UCLA is a big game. It's just, the luster's been lost a little bit with UCLA losing the way they did. But I think what's going to be interesting in this one is that can USC kind of match the tenacity of UCLA in the trenches? Because I really like what UCLA does in the trenches.
Yeah, and UCLA is going to be pretty pissed off after losing to Arizona at home.
Yeah, and Illinois at Michigan, I think, will still be a ranked game, even though not as illustrious after that loss to Purdue.
No Travis Dye for USC either.
That's big. But I'm going to tell you, the Jones kid that they put in,
nice.
and the third guy, I'm trying to remember his last name, it starts with an E. He can absolutely fly.
But Travis Dye is
He's
an extremely good back. All right, we're going to go to the Mass Game film project here, Brandon. He wants to know, #Ask Brandon, which defense has the best shot of slowing down that Georgia offense when it comes to the playoff time?
Oh my goodness. Tennessee, we know that. Let me see here. I think that to me, the team that's actually best equipped to beat Georgia in the playoff is probably Ohio State because of their offense. And the defense, I think, could maybe slow them down. Georgia's not an explosive offense down the field, as you guys know. I keep waiting for them to get A.D. Mitchell back, which is by far their number one receiver. And at some point, he's probably going to get back on the field. And he'll probably just be in time for the playoff. Then all of a sudden, Georgia's going to look like, 2019 LSU out there offensively. But I like Ohio State against Georgia, but just simply because I think they'd be able to outscore them a little bit. And their defense is better than Tennessee. I also like Michigan against them, but Michigan's just a team that just will beat you up in the trenches and kind of dictates the tempo of whatever they want to do and just wears teams out kind of in the second half and kind of do whatever they want. But I keep waiting for J.J. McCarthy just to really kind of have this huge game where they put the game in his hands. But when you got Blake Corum and that offensive line, and I mean, why try to take a lot of risks there? But anyway, back to the question. I think it's those two Big Ten teams that have the best shot. I mean, at Tennessee, Georgia, I think that would be an absolute mess.
I think Michigan's defense, the best asset they have if they play Georgia is Blake Corum to keep Georgia's offense off the field. Take that clock. Limit the possessions. I always use the college basketball analogy. Back in the day, you'd have a really good college basketball team playing a bad basketball team with no shot clock. What does a bad basketball team do? Just dribble this thing out, baby. You going to beat us 4-2? You want to beat us 4-2? Beat us 4-2. We're going to give ourselves a chance. But Brandon, it's always great having you on, my friend. Y'all do a great job over there at 247 Sports. Tell everybody where they can find you on the computer machine and Twitter as well.
At B Marcello on Twitter, and just check out 247sports.com. And big week ahead, I think, for the coaching carousel with assistant coaches, getting fired and everything. So I've got a big piece coming out. Polled over 100 coaches about who they think is on the rise and who is on the way out potentially across the sport.
Brandon Marcello, very own coaches poll. We appreciate you, my friend.
All right, see you guys.
See you, brother.
Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel and share it with all your friends. More content coming soon.